Welcome to Meganet Gaming, and today we're going to go back into my later childhood years. For the Christmas that the Nintendo 64 came out, I had my choice of a PlayStation, N64, and Sega Saturn. Nintendo 64 had cartoon-looking games like the Mario games and whatnot, and at the time I already had a PC and had played Doom, Wolfenstein 3D, and other such titles. While the Sega Saturn had stuff like, and PlayStation both had things like Resident Evil and Tomb Raider. So, the N64 was off the list. I ended up getting one later, in my later teen years, but that's a different story. It's actually, out of those three systems, the last one for me to get was the Nintendo 64. Actually got it out of a dumpster in the early 2000s. So it was a choice between the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation. And unlike many kids during that time, many kids probably just heard whatever other kids said on the playground was the best and went with that. Me, on the other hand, already having some experience building and fixing computers, decided to look at the hardware as well as the games library and took into consideration the previous Sega systems that I had. And it was a tough choice, but with the PlayStation, at the time, I believe Ridge Racer was the pack-in game. Or I could get the Sega Saturn. I could get 4 games. 3 with the system, plus a rebate card for the 4th. So I looked at Daytona USA and Ridge Racer and said, well, and I played them in an arcade as well. And really, I didn't have an experience that was different enough between the two to say one was significantly better than the other. But the Sega Saturn also came with Virtua Cop 2 and Virtua Fighter 2. And you could get Virtua Fighter Remix in a little sleeve if you sent in the rebate card. It's kind of an apology for how bad Virtua Fighter 1 apparently was when it was released for the platform. Which it really wasn't that bad. Disappointment, yes. Marketed in a seemingly dishonest way, yes. But a bad game, definitely not. By the time that the Sega Saturn was discontinued, I'd already moved on to primarily doing PC gaming, so it didn't really matter. So, I ended up with a collection of about 20 Sega Saturn games in the end. Ended up loving the system. It's one of those systems I wish I hadn't sold. Now, this isn't going to be a story about Guardian Heroes, the game I bought because it is $19.95, and I figured, hey, why not? Let's take a chance on a game I've never heard of because it's $20 and how bad can it actually be? Which turned out to be one of my favorite titles. It'd go on a top 50 list of games I've ever played. We're not going to cover that, nor the $70 ripoff that Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was. Now that game would have been more appropriate at 20. Not a bad game, but just not worth 70. Nor am I going to cover my experience with Tomb Raider, but I will at some point. We're going to cover the game that I have Virtua Fighter 2 and Virtua Cop 2 both on the PC. I couldn't get Virtua Fighter 2 to run on this computer, trying to play it over the network. Given it wants a CD, and the computer doesn't have a CD drive. Virtua Cop 2 did run, so we're going to cover Virtua Cop 2. Virtua Cop 2 was developed by Sega AM2. They worked on a lot of arcade. They're the second development division for arcade games. Published by Sega. It's released in arcade, Sega Saturn, PC, and is also on Dreamcast and PlayStation 2. It's released in 1995. Ported to the Sega Saturn in 1996, which is when I got my Sega Saturn. Released on PC in 1997. It's a rail shooter with single and multiplayer, and it was on the arcade version was in the Sega Model 2. Use Sega Model 2 hardware. So basically there's 3 levels, and you go down a predetermined path, and you basically get to shoot bad guys as a cop. As far as the plot goes, it really doesn't matter that much. However, if you are interested, you play as, there's 3 different characters that are trying to shut down the IVIL Inc. criminal empire. And that's basically what you're doing. At the time, this game was extremely well received. People loved it. But we're going to see how well it holds up. This is going to be a bit of a let's play coupled with a review. Now, I am playing with a controller, but there are actually light guns for the PC you can use that work just fine. And even though I'm demonstrating with a controller, I am going to be doing the review assuming you have a light gun. Much like when I get to Duck Hunt for the Nintendo, I'm not going to be reviewing it as if I'm playing with a controller or a keyboard and mouse and an emulator. I believe it's, if a game clearly states it was intended for controller type controller type A, I'm not going to count off points if I had a bad experience with controller type B. With a few exceptions, with that being a game like Dark Souls on the PC where it says it's optimized for the PC, for PC gamers, yet it's a piece of junk trying to get it to work in any fully playable way on the PC with a keyboard and mouse. So let's get this up and running with some sound, and we're going to demonstrate Virtua Cop 2, a game that I'm probably atrocious at now, but hopefully not. Okay, we'll do beginner so I don't end up dead that quickly.
Let's go!
I'm very powered down on graphics. They weren't bad at the time. So yeah, you just go around shooting. Oh hey, on easy I'm not doing so bad. I have beaten this game on hard before.
Somebody help me!
You don't want to shoot the good guys. You want so that's basically the game. This is what
Don't
you do.
shoot!
You go through different levels. I'm even playing with keyboard and mouse. It's actually kind of fun with the keyboard and mouse. Not the deepest game that I've ever done. It was kind of fun. Yeah, that was bad. One of the criticisms of the game is how it is pretty slow. Seems a big deal in arcade. When you have a home console.
Don't shoot!
And it's I had made it all the way through all 3 of my games on the most difficult setting for Sega Saturn.
Reload!
The first day I had it. So it does good. It is a minus billing.
Somebody help me!
Yeah, when you have the light gun, it actually works quite well. Even using a controller, keyboard, and mouse, it is very responsive. Oh, how'd I do? 56% accuracy, terrible. I think some stuff in violence. Right? Oh, look, civilians. Yeah, this is a basic. Well, you get the car chase scenes between fun. Nice pixelated fire. And for being a game with a... I think this game holds up much better than a lot of games at the time. Because the gameplay style, the graphics are just good enough to tell what's going on in the setting. Yet they still have quite a bit of charm with a lot of different aspects. And when you put on the hardest difficulty, it is a game that has quite a bit of charm. Especially if you're trying to get through a level with 100% accuracy.
Somebody help me!
Really, yeah, between the PC and the Sega Saturn version.
Reload!
Oh yeah, this is kind of fun too. They throw grenades at destruct them. Oops. That's a good place to stop. So yeah, that is Virtua Cop 2 for the PC and Sega Saturn. The other versions I haven't played, or haven't played in enough detail for long enough to really give a meaningful review. So you have a fun, fast-paced game where you get to be a cop. Has a variety of challenge settings, but it is a very short game. The gameplay is simplistic, yet the controls are very responsive. It's one of those games where you'll pick it up, play it for an hour, set it back down, maybe pick it up another time. But every time you pick it up, it'll continue to be fun. So, where do I put this on the chart? It is an above average game. And it controls very well. For what it is, an arcade game, I would say it's a good game. So where I'm going to put it, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It is clearly an above average game, but it lacks the depth necessary, as well as the length and variety of content necessary to put it much higher. And I'm going to put it right below Twisted Metal 2. And right above Shadow Tower for the PS1, which is the highest 5.5 on the list. If only Shadow Tower had gameplay that was this responsive. I'm not saying guns and everything. Definitely don't turn the Shadow Tower into a rail shooter. But if Shadow Tower had the controls of this game, the responsiveness, that game would have been so much better. That's one of the many games that style where I love it despite the gameplay. So Virtua Cop 2 for the Sega Saturn or the PC, pick up either one. I do recommend playing with the light gun, but if you're stuck with a controller or keyboard and mouse, and playing it with that is fun as well. Hope you enjoyed the review. Please like, subscribe, and have a great day.